What if I told you that your greatest enemy isn't the devil, it's your own thinking? The mind is not a playground, it's a battlefield. And every day, invisible wars are being fought between your ears. Some of you are losing the battle before you even get out of bed. You hear voices that say, "You're not good enough. You're too late. You're stuck forever." Huh. But let me ask you, who gave those thoughts permission to live in your mind? Thoughts are seeds, and whatever seeds you tolerate will eventually grow into your reality. So today, we're not just trimming weeds, we're burning the whole field. Today, we erase negative thoughts for good. Let me tell you something that may shock you. Your life is not a reflection of your prayers, your hopes, or even your potential. It is a reflection of your thoughts. A man can pray for breakthrough, fast for favor, shout in church until his voice cracks, but if his mind is filled with the wrong seed, he will still produce the wrong fruit. Because the mind is not a storage unit, it's a garden. And every day you are planting. Whether you realize it or not, your mind is collecting seeds through what you hear, what you watch, what you meditate on in the silence. The question is not if something is growing, the question is, what is growing? Some of you are walking through life surrounded by the wild overgrowth of what others planted. A careless word from a parent, a teacher who told you you're just average, a friend who betrayed you. These words didn't just pass through your ears, they dug into the soil of your soul and took root. And now, years later, you're still dealing with the fruit of someone else's brokenness. But listen to me, just because someone planted it doesn't mean you have to keep it. You don't have to water it, you don't have to nurture it. You have the authority to uproot every seed that was never meant to grow in you. When God created man, he placed him in a garden, not a factory, not a battlefield, but a garden. Why? Because the very essence of human life was designed around cultivation. What you allow to take root in your mind will eventually take control of your decisions. You don't just have a bad habit, you planted a bad thought that grew into a habit. You don't just struggle with anxiety, you rehearse fear long enough for it to become familiar. And let me give you a real picture. A man once told me he had been living in depression for over a decade. He thought he needed medication, therapy, and maybe he did. But at the root of it, he had been speaking death over himself every day. I'm tired. I'm stuck. I'll never catch up. He had memorized defeat like a song on repeat. And when we trace it back, it began with one belief. I don't have what it takes. That one seed poisoned his joy, choked his peace, and hijacked his vision. I asked him, who told you that? Who told you you didn't have what it takes? And he paused. That was the turning point. Because every lie loses its power when it's confronted by truth. The lie cannot survive in the presence of confrontation. I'm here to tell you, you are the gardener. No one else is responsible for what grows in your mind but you. Not your boss, not your parents, not even the devil. You are the gatekeeper. If you let weeds grow, weeds will rule. But if you plant vision, discipline, hope, and peace, those things will shape your future. Don't water the voice of your insecurity. Don't fertilize the memory of your failures. Don't give sunlight to the shadows of your shame. Uproot every lie and plant truth like your life depends on it. Because it does. Your destiny is not determined by what you feel, it's determined by what you feed. You don't negotiate with darkness. You don't counsel cancer. You don't comfort a thief while he's robbing your house. And yet, many of us have learned to live with toxic thoughts, like they belong, entertaining anxiety, feeding bitterness, tolerating fear, as if these things were roommates instead of intruders. Let me tell you this. You were never meant to manage negative thoughts. You were born to drive them out. You don't treat poison, you eliminate it. The mistake we often make is trying to cope with destructive thinking instead of confronting it. You can't fight thoughts with silence. If you don't speak to your mind will speak for you. And it doesn't whisper, it shouts. It tells you who you're not, what you never do, what you never become. And if you don't rise up with authority, it will turn your own voice against you. I once met a young man who told me, I just live with it now. He was talking about shame. Every day he heard the same sentence in his head. You are the mistake. Not that you made one, you are one. And it wasn't even his voice. It was the echo of a father who left, a mother who cursed him in anger, and a crowd of bullies that followed him into adulthood. That lie lived in his head like it had a lease. But I told him, lies can't stay in a house where the truth takes ownership. You don't manage shame, you evict it. You don't adjust to fear, you rebuke it. Some of you have become familiar with the voice of negativity because it came dressed in reason. It sounded rational. It sounded like protection. Don't dream too big, you'll only be disappointed. Don't trust again, you'll only be hurt. But let me tell you, caution that's rooted in fear is not wisdom, it's bondage. You've built walls where you were supposed to build bridges. And every time you listen to that thought, you shrink into a smaller version of yourself. There's a passage that says, take every thought captive. Do you know what that means? It means you interrogate what enters your mind. You don't just let anything sit at your mental table. You ask, where did you come from? Who sent you? Do you align with who I'm called to be? And if the answer is no, you cast it down, not later, now. I want to challenge you today. Stop trying to medicate what you need to eliminate. Stop managing demons God gave you authority to drive out. Your mind is too sacred to be shared with thoughts that want to kill your joy, drain your strength, and sabotage your tomorrow. It's been too passive with what's been too destructive for too long. It's time to stand up in your own mind and say, no more. I will no longer allow lies to live rent-free in me. Because the future God has for you will not fit in the atmosphere that negative thoughts create. Change your mind, and you change your life. Eviction starts today. The most dangerous voice in your life is not the one coming from outside. It's the one you start to believe on the inside. Because the voice you believe becomes the reality you begin to live. It doesn't matter how gifted you are, how educated, how supported, you will always live at the level of the voice that has your agreement. If the voice in your head is always reminding you of what you're not, what you've lost and where you failed, then you will unconsciously build your future around fear and insecurity instead of strength and destiny. What voice are you listening to? And more importantly, why are you giving it power? I think a man's life will always move in the direction of his dominant thoughts, and thoughts come from voices. Some of those voices come wrapped in memory, childhood rejection, betrayal, abandonment. Some come dressed in culture, media, telling you you're not enough unless you look a certain way or have a certain amount of followers. Others come in the quiet hours of the night, when everything around you is silent, but your thoughts scream louder than ever. And here's the truth. What you tolerate, you start to trust. If you hear a lie long enough, you begin to confuse it with your identity. You stop saying, I feel anxious, and you start saying, I am anxiety. You stop saying, I've failed, and you start saying, I am a failure. The voice rewrites your vocabulary until your mouth starts working for your enemy. I remember a woman who had all the talent in the world, a sharp mind, leadership ability, creativity. But every time she got close to a breakthrough, she pulled back. She said, "It's like something inside me whispers, don't get your hopes up." That voice became her law. Her life stayed small, not because of external opposition, but because she had internal agreement with limitation. The voice in her head was stronger than any hand that tried to pull her forward. Let me ask you, what voice are you in covenant with? Because heaven is still speaking. God hasn't gone silent. The voice of truth is still declaring that you are more than a mistake, more than a moment, more than what you've been through. But it's not enough for God to say it. You have to believe it. You must choose whose voice will rule your mind. There is a story in the scriptures where Jesus says, "My sheep know my voice." He didn't say they hear it. He said they know it. That means there are other voices speaking, but those who walk with him learn to discern the difference. Just because a thought enters your mind doesn't mean it came from your Creator. If it produces fear, confusion, shame, it didn't come from him. He doesn't speak in torment. He speaks in truth. He speaks in clarity. You want to change your life? Start by confronting the voice you've been agreeing with. Don't just identify the lie, replace it. Speak what you want to live. Speak what aligns with the future you were made for. You may not feel it yet, but you don't need to feel something to fight for it. Speak anyway, because the atmosphere of your life will always reflect the voice you value the most. If you want to live in freedom, don't just silence the lie. Start speaking the truth louder. Your mind is not a battlefield, your mind is the war. The greatest victories you will ever win in life will not happen in public, on a stage, in front of an audience. They will happen in the silence of your thoughts. When nobody's watching, when nobody's cheering, when it's just you and the decision to believe something higher than what your feelings are screaming. And here's the truth. If you don't intentionally renew your mind will recycle your pain. Some people aren't stuck because they don't have vision. They're stuck because their mind is trapped in a loop, a cycle, a pattern. And patterns are powerful. They don't ask your permission to run. They are programmed by repetition, and you've been repeating the wrong thoughts for so long that they now feel like truth. That's not truth. It's conditioning. You cannot break strongholds with passive thinking. You cannot overcome internal prisons with external distractions. Changing your environment means nothing if your mind is still trapped in yesterday. You can relocate to a new city and still live in the shadow of old shame. You can get a new relationship and still carry the weight of the old one, because transformation doesn't happen until you take authority over your internal pattern. I met a man once. On paper, he had everything: wealth, success, a strong reputation, but in his quiet moments, he said he was tormented. Not by what people said about him, but by what he believed about himself. He said, "Every time I sit still, I hear this voice that says, 'You're a fraud.'" And I asked him, where did that voice come from? And you know what he said? It's just always been there. That's how many of us live, tormented by thoughts we've never dared to question. You must understand, every lie left unchallenged becomes a mental law. And a law will govern your decisions, whether you know it or not. That is why the scripture says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That word renew means to renovate, and renovation is messy. It means tearing down what no longer serves your identity. It means exposing the faulty foundations you built during seasons of trauma and replacing them with truth, brick by brick. This is not about motivation. It's about reconstruction. It's about building a mind that matches the life you were created to carry. Do not be loyal to thoughts that betray your destiny. Just because a thought feels familiar doesn't mean it deserves access. Comfort is not confirmation. Some thoughts are comfortable only because you've rehearsed them, not because they're true. You want to be free? You must declare war on your old wiring. You must refuse to let your history become your habitat. You were not created to survive in a mental prison. You were created to walk in power, clarity, and dominion. Renovate the house. Tear down the lie. Rebuild with truth. Your mind is too powerful to live enslaved. Let me tell you something that religion alone won't teach you. Your emotions are not the enemy. Your emotions are messengers. But if you don't govern them, they will become masters. The problem is not that we feel too much. The problem is that we give our emotions authority they were never meant to have. Emotions were designed to signal, not to steer. When fear becomes the driver, your life will always take the wrong turn, no matter how much you pray. When anger holds the wheel, it will crash relationships you were meant to heal. When shame sits in the driver's seat, it will take you far from who you truly are. Emotions must be discerned, not obeyed. Some people live in mental torment not because they lack strength, but because they let every emotion define their reality. A wave of sadness comes and they say, "This must be who I am." A flash of frustration rises and they conclude, "I'll never change." That's deception. Your emotions may be valid, but they are not final. They are not kings. They are indicators. But we were never called to be ruled by what we feel. We were called to lead our feelings with truth. I once spoke to a woman who said every time she was about to step into something new, an opportunity, a new relationship, a chance to lead, this overwhelming feeling of unworthiness would flood her chest, and she'd back away. She said, "It feels so real, I can't breathe through it." And I told her, just because something feels real doesn't mean it came from God. Even a lie can produce real tears. Even deception can cause real pain. And if you're not rooted in truth, you'll accept every emotion as fact. Do not build your identity around passing feelings. Emotions fluctuate. Identity does not. Stop labeling yourself with what you felt in a moment. "I'm just an angry person." No, you had an angry day. "I'm just broken." No, you had a broken moment. Stop allowing temporary feelings to write permanent definitions. That's why the Romanian kingdom doesn't offer you emotional escape. It offers you emotional authority. You were designed to manage your inner world with wisdom, to pause before you react, to question what arises, to speak back to what surges, and most of all, to speak truth louder than your fear. Right? Scripture says, "Be angry and sin not." That means the emotion is not the problem. It's the decision you make after it arises. You can feel disappointment and still move forward. You can feel fear and still act in faith. Maturity is when you feel the weight, but refuse to bow to it. Listen, what you feel is not always what is. You may feel overlooked, but heaven is watching. You may feel unworthy, but grace has covered you. You may feel weak, but strength is rising in places you cannot yet see. Don't let emotions become your compass. Let truth be your anchor. Emotions will visit, but only truth should be allowed to live with you. The enemy of transformation is always delay, not destruction. Delay. You don't need a storm to ruin a seed, you just need to stop watering it. And that's exactly how many people missed their breakthrough. Not because the promise wasn't real, not because the word wasn't true, but because they kept postponing the fight in their mind. They kept saying, I'll deal with this thinking later. I'll confront this fear tomorrow. I'll change how I think once things get better. But let me tell you, nothing changes until your mind does. And your mind will never change by accident. Victory is not for the passive. Freedom is not for the comfortable. Freedom is for the intentional. You will never erase negative thinking by hoping it goes away. You must decide daily, consistently, ruthlessly that you will no longer be a passive participant in your own sabotage. You must get violent in your spirit against every thought that mocks your identity. You must develop mental discipline, not once, not twice, but as a lifestyle. This is not a Sunday decision. It's not a conference high. This is war. And war requires strategy. Some of you keep wondering why the same thoughts keep coming back. It's because you've tried to cast out what you were meant to replace. You emptied the room but never filled it. You rejected the lie but never installed the truth. And Scripture says when a house is swept clean and left empty, the unclean spirit returns with 7 more. That's not superstition. That's a principle. Empty space attracts repetition. If you don't replace your thoughts, they will return louder, stronger, deeper. I once spoke with a man who beat addiction, rebuilt his family, and was walking strong. But months later, he fell again. I asked him what changed. He said, I stopped doing what got me free. You see, deliverance is powerful, but maintenance is holy. Transformation is not sustained by emotion. It is sustained by discipline. You must speak truth daily. You must guard your gates. What you watch, what you listen to, who you allow to speak into your life. Not out of legalism, but because your mind is sacred and your future depends on it. If you don't manage your mental climate, don't be surprised when negative thoughts flourish. They grow in neglect. But when you fill your life with intention, when you surround yourself with voices of clarity, when you start speaking what you want to become consistently, the weeds of negativity die from starvation. You don't just get free, you stay free. You don't just change your mind, you discipline it. And when you do, the thoughts that once had power over you will lose their voice. What used to control you will now bow to you. Why? Because you chose daily mastery over momentary motivation. Discipline is not bondage. It's your liberation strategy. Choose it, live it, and watch your entire life come into alignment. So now, the choice is yours. You can continue living as a prisoner of thoughts that were never meant to stay, or you can rise, confront, and command your mind to align with the truth of who you were created to be. You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not the opinions of broken people. You are not the sum of your fears. You are a vessel of divine intelligence, born with the authority to govern your mind and silence every voice that does not echo heaven. But hear me. Freedom will cost you comfort. Transformation will demand consistency. And renewal isn't a prayer, it's a practice. You must wake up every day and decide again. Decide to think higher. Decide to speak stronger. Decide to reject what poisons you and feast on what empowers you. Because when you master your mind, you begin to master your world. You don't need another sign. You need a decision. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until the fear leaves. Don't wait for a perfect day. Today is the day. Now is the moment. This is the hour to evict every lie, uproot every fear, and declare with power, no more. No more being driven by shame. No more living in survival. No more bowing to thoughts that diminish your worth. Your future is calling and it refuses to compete with your experience. You were born to dominate in every space you enter. You were designed to think with the mind of the king. You carry divine intelligence within you now. Walk in it, speak from it, live through it. Your freedom will not only bless you, it will bless generations after you. This is your time. This is your call. Now go. Think differently. Live intentionally, and never forget, the battle is already won, but your agreement is required. Good luck. Stay strong, stay faithful, and thank you for letting me speak into your life today. May your mind be bold, your heart be clear, and your future be unstoppable.